So you can't actually trade that order flow, right? Because the market is an auction. It's not a show. It's not something to tickle. I think a lot of people, they enter the markets because the market's very good at tickling your ego. Because you can do one of these things, right? You can draw a line. You can draw a 63.2 degree line and see two taps, and the third tap will work, right? Or you can draw horizontal lines, or you can find a fair value gap because you watched one of ICT videos. You can use market structure shifts or liquidity, right? These are either fancy words or overly simplified words or overly simplified actions that gives you a result. But what you don't understand is that you cannot trade without order flow because the market is an auction, right? It's not a show. And it's not this kind of theater that some people create into a theater where they're using the market to kind of justify their own ego. So every market you see, whether it's Tesla, Apple, Forex markets, Bitcoin, gold, any commodity, anything that you trade comes down to the second point, which is supply and demand, right? Supply and demand governs the price of almost anything that we look out or touch, right? Even the markets that you look at. So the ones that the market that you are looking at right now, for example, on the left is ES futures. That is the S&P 500. However, this applies to the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, US 30, all the Forex pairs, gold, Bitcoin, silver, even things you can't name, they all come down to supply and demand, right? The price of an asset or an instrument will fall due to an oversupply and will increase when there's excess demand. And so that same basic principle needs to be applied to when you trade. It's not any of these things. It's not the lines you draw, the sweeps you look at, the shifts you look at. It is simply an auction based off supply and demand, right? So the auction helps you read where supply and demand levels are. So predicting the markets as opposed to understanding how to read them is grossly egotistical, right? So that comes down to one of these things, right? These are grossly egotistical things to do because what you're doing is you're taking a line, a box, a rectangle, maybe even an EMA, for example, and you're coming into a multi-billion-dollar market and